You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody. Returning to Katahdin, an Appalachian Trail dream. Have you ever dreamt of hiking the AT? Bruce Matson did, so we're going to follow him every step of the way. Hi, and welcome back to Returning to Katahdin, an Appalachian Trail dream, sponsored by Trailtopia Adventure Foods. I don't want to bore you with my personal problems, but I've been moving house this week and have barely had time to breathe. On top of that, Skype decided to unilaterally update itself and totally invalidated the method of recording I've been using all this time. So I had to learn another system, and I eventually got it. The sound at the very beginning of my chat with Bruce is a little sketchy, but it soon sorts itself out. And because one of his daughters joined him on the trail, I had a short conversation with Amy, who hiked with her dad for a day in Connecticut. Before we hear from father and daughter, how about something sweet? Do you remember those times on the trail when you really needed to treat yourself? You know, those days when you fall in the mud or the rain starts running down your neck, the rocks are driving you crazy, or even when you're just fed up. You need a boost. When that happens, stop hiking. Take off your pack and treat yourself to one of Trailtopia's scrumptious desserts. Why not go for Rocky Road pudding, a rich chocolate pudding loaded with mini marshmallows and toasted slivered almonds. By the time you get that into your system, you're going to be warm, toasty and satisfied. Try Trailtopia Adventure Food, the best of home cooking away from home. So let's get into it. Here's Bruce. Okay, we're on with Bruce again. Hi Bruce, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, and I know you are because you are past 1,500 miles. What on earth is going on? Where have you been? I mean, I don't think we've actually spoken for over a week, so I spoke to Brooke last. Where have you been? How's it been going?
Yeah, it's been a kind of a maybe complicated or at some level busy or inactive week. So after Brooke came out for 2.5 days, and I mentioned last time we spoke, I just left Pauling, New York.
Yeah.
And enjoyed Pauling and really enjoyed the trail after Pauling, and then moved into Connecticut, I think, shortly after we spoke that same day.
Yeah.
So I've been in Connecticut until day before yesterday. And Connecticut was complicated at some level because we had family activities. I think a lot of the listeners may know that I'm actually originally from Connecticut. That's and right, yeah. Left Connecticut to go to school in Virginia and been in Virginia ever since. But one of my sisters still lives there. And so we had planned a family get-together in Connecticut. It just so happened it was the first weekend of the 4th of July week.
All right.
So Brooke came up, and Amy came from New York, and my sister pulled me off the trail. So I had a number of days off. Amy got her chance to go hiking with me on the trail. My brother-in-law went with us. So that was fun. It was the hottest day of the year when we did that. Was Sunday. So we... fortunately we were slack packing and we cut down the mileage, but we still had a good chance to hike together. It was pretty tough because it was hot, but
how hot did it get?
It was upper 90s. They said, with the humidity and all, it was, felt like it was like 102, I think. So
wow,
it was tough. And fortunately we all packed up the water, and I kept the pace very steady, and I called for mandatory water breaks and snack breaks, so everyone didn't expire on me. But everyone did great, and it was fun, and was glad we could do that. We were going to do a second day, but it was so hot. Basically, Amy and I had a day off. We went to the shore, and we did a little cruise through the Thimble Islands. We had lots of roll. So I had some time off. We went and did a cookout with my sister's family. So it was a week of more off trail than on trail, but I kept making progress though this week in Connecticut, and I tell you, we spoke back in Pauling where I had sort of this kind of a low moment in terms of mental approach. And, it started with that hike from Pauling, and Connecticut continued to offer these really great trails. It was finally I realized that I'd had weeks and weeks of rocks, not just Pennsylvania, but lots of rocks continued
Yes,
in
yeah,
New
they
Jersey
do
and New
continue,
York.
don't they? They do continue, definitely.
And finally, that hike out of Pauling and most of all the hike in Connecticut has been just lovely. And I realized how much I enjoy the walking, the hiking experience when I don't have to look down every second and trip over rocks every other second. And even though it's been a hot week, it's really been fun. And Connecticut's been surprisingly interesting and fun and pleasant. So it was a great, recharging and
Yes,
sort of resetting of my emotional state, because it was a little
good.
tough there in New York right before Brooke came,
I could
and I feel
tell.
great now.
I could tell.
I'm really feeling great. It was a little. I had a big box sent here to Great Barrington, Sheffield, and I'm really eager to get going tomorrow because the weather has turned. It's gorgeous, gorgeous weather. It's in low 50s tonight, low 70s
Nice.
of a high. It's just the best hiking weather. So I'm very energized for a change after some tougher moments a week or so ago, both with Brooke's visit, Amy's visit, and some time with my family.
Yeah.
Seeing my sister and her children was just a lot of fun. It's fun to see your own children and your nephews and nieces become adults. So
Yes.
it was just a great week and a great time for me to get re-energized.
Yeah, I remember there being you saying some time ago, maybe you said last week actually. This happens in a marathon as well, doesn't it? You get you get hit by some mental anguish, or you get down partway through a marathon, and then you just carry on, don't you?
Yep, absolutely. I'm so just so grateful that I wasn't expecting this energy and excitement to return as well as it did, but it was a combination of family, combination of nice hiking, and a combination of the weather clearing. So I have to tell you, I'm really eager to get going tomorrow morning, and going to be out for five whole days before I get resupplied again, and I can't wait.
It's starting to get a little bit hillier now as well, and I know you've been up and over Mount Everett. Do you? And I recall Mount Everett. I don't know whether it was rainy or something, but the backside of Mount Everett, when you're on the way down, was really hairy. Do you recall that at all?
Yeah, well, it's a good comment, because the day I did that was the day before last, and it was before the weather broke, so it was a really hot day, and I was planning to I wasn't slack packing. So I had a pretty full pack, and I was thinking, 9, 10, 11 miles might be enough, because there were 3 climbs. Nothing like, the Southern Appalachian yet, but there were still 3 climbs, one of which is Bear Mountain, which is very vertical.
That's right.
And both and Everett is similar. So Everett and Bear are very straight up and very straight down. And when I looked at the forecast, we had a very high probability of rain the next day, which was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I said, I have gone over these rocks enough times where I've said to myself, I don't know how I could do this in the rain or wet conditions.
Yeah.
So I made myself do Everett the day before yesterday, so I could get it done before the rain came. And it was because, just as you said, very steep up, very steep down, lots of rocks, and it was not, it was challenging, but it wasn't dangerous generally.
I think it must have been raining when I did it, because I felt probably in more danger on Mount Everett than any other hike down other than New Hampshire and Maine. And then you get every single hill is a leap of death. But I really found Everett to be a tough. It was a great introduction to the rest of the place. The rest of the hike.
I don't doubt that. So I did get poured on yesterday, and actually there was a fair bit more of rocks and rock ledges coming down from Bushnell Mountain and something called Jug End, and those were relatively dangerous, actually. And it was one of those tests where I had to really, really ease myself down, find ways down these rocks because they were wet. It was pouring rain, and it was somewhat dangerous. But thankfully, got down without the incident. Although two people hiking with me, near me, in front of me, I watched her go down and literally slide probably 15 feet down this smooth rock.
Wow. Yes.
One of the women. So
risky, very risky.
Just have to step carefully.
And I seem to remember, I may have the order wrong, but is Sage's Ravine before Everett?
Yes, it is. Good recollection.
And isn't that amazing?
Lovely.
Oh, isn't that amazing? I bet and if it was a hot day, it must have been really almost like tropical, wasn't it? It was really, it's kind of deep. You're deep into something, aren't you? And there's lots of green and green all around you. I loved it in there. Yeah,
part of the reason, and that's where you literally cross from Connecticut to
that's right,
Massachusetts. Yeah. And part of the reason that I sort of had these buoyed spirits is that, unlike, again, I don't want to pick too much on Pennsylvania, but there just wasn't that much variety and interest. But in Connecticut, we had a lot of different things going on with some rock climbs, some beautiful paths, the Housatonic River. And then Sage's Ravine, and you know, I literally did a video, which isn't up yet, but I did a video that said, you know, one of the reasons I'm excited about hiking again is I got to hike for half a mile along Sage's Ravine, which is like some of those mountain streams you would hike along in the Southern Appalachians. And it's one of my favorite things to do is just to see the water rolling over the rocks and hear it and to walk alongside it. And
glorious.
I got to do that all through Sage's Ravine. And it just, both the quality of the paths, the variety of challenges without having ridiculous, tasks, just made me remember how much the hiking experience is fun. And I think we're going to have that all the way to New Hampshire. And we know New Hampshire is a completely different challenge, and that's going to be fun as well for different reasons.
It certainly is, yeah. It's funny, I remember you mentioned the Housatonic. I seem to remember there's a long, really long, flat, quite wide path alongside the Housatonic. You can and it's very safe, so you can just look at the river the whole time, and it's really thundering past you, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It was almost dead flat, like you say, wide. I think it's a popular local hiking area, so the path's well worn and often visited. Yeah. And it was just very relaxing, like you say, kind of daydream and not worry about
falling over,
all the stuff in front of you.
Yeah, talking about falling over, have you got a count? Have you got a falling over count right now?
Yeah, I have fallen 11 times.
Wow, not bad. Half of mine came in New Hampshire and Maine, by the way. half of my 45. So yeah, you've still got some exciting things to go. And you know, I was thinking about, you mentioned the other day you have, like I think everybody does at this stage, you started to think in real terms about Katahdin. Have you started working out, which I did, and I treated this as a way in which I managed my miles, the number of miles I've got to go divided by the number of days I want to take. You know, if you say you set a date of whatever it is in August or September, have you kind of worked that sort of thing out?
Yeah, I have, partly because Cheryl and the girls have all expressed an interest in joining. And with school starting and Cheryl's obligations, it's really hard for her to come at the end of August. And unfortunately, I keep looking at my days and my numbers, and I keep coming up with end of August. I just don't think I've learned the last month or so that pushing myself because of a schedule or a deadline or a set of miles is actually reducing my enjoyment out here.
Yes.
So, and she's the last person who is encouraging me to move fast or meet a deadline. She knows that the slower I go, the safer I go.
Absolutely.
So it's funny you asked that, because last night we spoke and we've kind of circled a date on the calendar that is actually after Labor Day, because it's a date that she'll have gotten some of her major responsibilities around the beginning of school taken care of.
Right.
And it's okay. It might be 10 days later than I normally would be there, but that one, it'll reduce the pressure. Two, it'll allow me to take some time and enjoy some areas. But most importantly, if we can circle a date that she can come and the girls can figure out a way to come, finishing with them would be much more important than finishing 10 days or 2 weeks earlier.
Absolutely.
Because
Of course it
when
would
all
be.
said and done, it's not going to matter a bit which date it was. It'll matter a lot if they can go up with me.
Oh, that'd be really cool. Mind you, I tell you, it's a tough climb for somebody who hasn't been hiking that much. It's quite a way. It's quite a ways up there, and you've got to. I think you've got to make sure you remember to allow that you're not going to be rushing through New Hampshire. However long you hike in the day, we struggle to make. I think we averaged 11 miles a day through the White Mountains, and I don't think that's that bad, to be honest with you. So the mileage definitely goes down the White Mountains. But you know them; you've been there anyway, haven't you?
Yeah, and that's part of my calculus.
All
so
right.
I basically I'm on the conservative side, but I want to be because I don't want to rush. I don't want to force things, and so I basically work through kind of a 15 miles a day scenario, and then cut it down to 10 miles a day for New Hampshire and southern Maine. And based on that, and a few zeros, I still come up with somewhere right around Labor Day. And since that's not a very good time for Cheryl, and I'm also told that the Native Americans have special ceremonies and rites that weekend, and there's less access to the park on that weekend.
Right.
It looks the best solution for our family is just for me to slow down and do something shortly after a week or so after Labor Day.
Yeah, don't worry about it. New Hampshire will slow you down. You'll be okay. It won't disappoint you, I'll tell you.
I think if I do have that excess time, it'll allow me to sort of watch the weather and the whites and summit more often when it's going to be beautiful.
Good thinking. Yeah. And that's the thing. You can go to these beautiful mountain ranges and they're there for 1 or 2 days. We've had this before, when you just get bad weather and it's socked out. You can't see a thing. So you really do want to see it in a lovely day because it's going to take your breath away. I remember the top of, not Mahoosic Notch. I can't remember the name now. Oh God, it's driving me crazy. It's first one into New Hampshire, Moosalak. That's right, yeah. The first one in Moosalak. I remember I was literally as a breath taker. I'd never seen anything like it in all my life. It was a beautiful day. I could see for miles and miles. There was a blue in the air. It was just spectacular to see. So I'm jealous of you doing that, and you're gonna absolutely love that. Now I've got a question from a lady, Lisa Rana, and it's about food. And she says, she said, I'm always curious about food and eating habits. And she says, my Italian upbringing. She says, question for RTK. In the beginning of your series with him, you reviewed his plan on having mail drops fairly frequently from home so he could cut down on his time in town resupplying. And so he could keep a steady flow of freeze-dried, dehydrated meals of his choice. Is his planning in this regard holding up entirely, or has he adjusted his resupply on the trail? I got the impression he was trying to eat a little more healthy on the trail and was wondering if he's been able to do so. Because, of course, sometimes you go into town, you do eat junk food. Finally, has the man still not encountered true hiker hunger?
Yeah, good question. So believe it or not, I still don't have true hiker hunger. I certainly eat well off the trail, but I'm not. I'll never forget this friend of mine up in Harper's Ferry. He was heading out to dinner. I had just gotten there and I didn't really have the time. And I told someone I'd share a pizza with him. Yeah. And he ran off to dinner. And when he came back, he was, the waitress never got used to the fact that I wanted to order 2 entrees. He just couldn't compute that. But I haven't been that kind of hunger. I mean, I certainly have enjoyed a lot of treats and nice meals and larger portions, but not like you hear a lot of times. I think like you experience. So
totally.
The answer to that question is still no severe hiker hunger, despite losing over 40 pounds.
Yeah.
Resupply.
Has that stabilized the weight loss? It's been 40 pounds for some time now, isn't it?
Yeah, it might be 44 or 45, but it seems to have stabilized a little bit. We'll see. I still obviously burn a lot of calories every day.
Sure.
But it doesn't seem to be as much as it's been.
And I know we're going to go on to the resupply in a minute, but just while we think about that, are you still feeling really, really healthy and fit with this? Is this making you feel better every day?
I don't know if it's every day, but every day meaning I don't know if I feel better every day, but every day I feel good. And
sorry, that's kind of what I mean. Yeah.
So I've had really don't have days where physically I have felt bad. I haven't gotten any fatigue. Been very fortunate in terms of diseases, but never had stomach issues.
Yeah.
So generally, I've been incredibly well, and
Awesome.
very grateful for that.
Yeah.
I think I'll probably lose a few more pounds because it's still a lot of calories you're burning every day, and I still don't be taking in as much. But for the resupply, I need my Trailtopia every evening, so it's really
good man.
Good
stuff.
So it's good to have. The easiest way to do that is Cheryl does send me a box. So like right here, I'm at Jess Treat's hostel, which
I loved it
delightful.
there. I loved it there.
Oh, you did come.
I stayed there.
Yeah, she's just been great. And but it was so good to have a box. One thing I have been doing, the only real modification, I've done two things. I've had Cheryl send a few lesser things, less complete resupply, so I can supplement resupply more on my own terms. Every once in a while you want something different.
Sure.
But the main resupply, here's a good example actually. We ran out to the Great Barrington Farmers Market this morning, and we were going to stop at the store. I needed some tortillas or some bagel thins or some kind of bread product to go with the typical peanut butter and tuna and the typical lunch that most of us have out here.
That's
and
right.
That's what I'm having.
Yeah.
But when I went to the farmers market, I said, I need 5 lunches, and I know it's going to be a little bulkier. It's going to be a little tiny bit heavier, but not much because tortillas are not light. But I just resupplied with fresh baked rustic Italian bread and ciabatta rolls.
Lovely.
So we didn't have to stop at the grocery store for resupply. So that's going to be fun to have those baked treats with my tuna, etc. So the basic answer is the resupply is generally going the same, although little by little I'm seeing some benefit to doing more, resupply on the run. In terms of my menu, the big change I've made is, if you've been following the podcast, you know that I plan to eat grits and oatmeal almost every morning, and I wasn't doing that because I wasn't either hungry or it was too cold to cook. So I've eliminated the cooked breakfast, except occasionally, like yesterday, I got up and made coffee, but I had a breakfast bar or two with that. So my breakfast is basically some oat bars or protein bars or some kind of bar that I have one sort of as I'm packing out and sort of one in mid-morning. Maybe I'll have coffee or hot chocolate. Maybe I won't. Lunch is very much the same. And then dinner is typically, a Trailtopia meal.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, oatmeal sucked after 150 days. Oh my God, it was a nightmare. I can't look at oatmeal anymore. I really can't. It's terrible stuff. Awful. Well, look, I'm so glad you're well again, and you sound great. And you'll move over 1,500 miles, Bruce. Can you imagine it? So you got 7 there. Yeah. Let's think you got 600 and something miles, less than 700 miles to go.
Yeah, someone yesterday calculated it down to the percent that we were 69.4% finished, something like that.
You're getting there. I tell you, you're getting there.
We're getting there. I'm
just looking what's ahead of you on the map, and doesn't look too bad. I can't recall a lot of this. I know the next big climb is Greylock, isn't it? Yes, it is. Greylock is the next massive climb. That's enjoyable, though.
I'm pretty familiar with the AT in Massachusetts because one of my shakedown hikes was to do half of it with a friend back in 2016. And not that I want to get overconfident, but my recollection is that this run all the way to Vermont is a very pleasant trails, not crazy climb. And even Greylock is not a terribly difficult climb, maybe a little tougher coming down into Williamstown and North Adams than it is actually climbing up to Greylock. So again, it's another reason I'm excited about getting back on the trail. I'm feeling good, got a little better attitude than I had in New York, and ready to go. And then I've had some friends up ahead giving me tips about Vermont. I think that's going to be fun. I've never hiked in Vermont, so
really?
I hear though that the trails are quite good, and so we'll have some of some of the big climbs in Vermont will probably remind us of the Southern Appalachians.
Yeah.
That instead of being a bunch of steep, short ones, we'll have a little more of these longer climbs up to like Killington and Stratton.
I don't remember when I went through, I don't recall actually the date I went through Massachusetts, and I must have been a bit after you, but we had tremendous amounts of flies. You getting many flies? Especially in the heat.
Funny. The flies have been very tolerable so far,
Wow.
except yesterday coming into Sheffield, Great Barrington, there's a bog swamp area and a pine forest you come through. And I think it was a combination of early morning rain. The rain had just stopped and the conditions were very still. And I've never had more mosquitoes on me the whole trip than I did for about 2 miles through that last section of the trail before I got to the Great Barrington Sheffield trailhead.
You can see how it would drive people crazy, can't you? Because they really are. They are just relentless. You're constantly swatting away on your face. And so, I recall I had to go into town near where you are actually, and got one of these face nets, and it worked. It really worked well because they were just constantly on my face. You haven't had that then?
Yeah, I have one that I've carried now for quite some time, but right. I think I put it in my pack in Harper's Ferry, but haven't used it yet. But I hope I never do. But I assume it's coming sooner or later.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, good to talk to you, and we will catch up soon. All right.
All right. Very good. Thanks, Dave.
Happy trails. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Cheers.
So it sounds like he had a fairly relaxed week with a couple of zeros and a bit of a family get-together. I heard somewhere today that one of the main reasons people quit the trail is the homesickness and not seeing family. Bruce seems to have given himself a good balance with friends and family joining him from time to time to give him his family fix. I'm sure that is one of the main reasons he's been able to keep at it. Funnily enough, when we finished the recording, we carried on talking, and to my great surprise, Bruce revealed something to me about how low he had actually become before he hit Connecticut. He's written a blog post on it, and I'll certainly be chatting about it with him next week. Suffice it to say that all wasn't quite as well as we'd thought. Thanks, of course, to Lisa Rana for asking Bruce the question about his food. Can you believe it? Bruce is the only person I've spoken to who didn't get the legendary hiker hunger. It is real, let me tell you, and quite how he's managed to avoid it, I really can't say. Maybe it's because his Trailtopia meals are totally doing it for him. Don't forget to send me your address, Lisa. And now it's Amy, yet another high-achieving woman in his family. We had a quick chat on Sunday morning. Here's Amy. And we're on now with Amy. Amy is Bruce's younger daughter. Is that right? Have I got that right, Amy?
Yes, that's right.
Thank gosh for that. Yeah. As soon as I said it, I thought, is that right? I'm not quite sure. But yes, hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. And you've just come back from spending a little bit of time on the trail with your dad. Where did you actually join him?
So I actually took the train up with Brooke. Brooke had come back to the city. She was staying with me.
Right.
And we took the train up to Bridgeport in Connecticut.
All right. Okay.
So met him in Bridgeport, and then we ended up hiking over in Kent.
All right. And what did you think of it? Did you enjoy the trail that you saw?
I did. I mean, we hiked between Bulls Bridge and Kent, and the trail's wonderfully maintained, in great shape. Our biggest challenge just was the heat.
Yes.
There was heat advisory out, and it was about 95, 96. So I think, like I said, the biggest challenge was the heat. The trail was wonderful. Yeah,
that's fierce, isn't it? That sort of temperature. I mean, I would sweat in 40-degree weather. So God knows what it'd be like in the 90s. You know, how much of a pack did you take? Was it quite a small pack?
Yes, I just had a small day pack, enough to carry water, snacks, and a sweat rag. Really,
right.
I wasn't carrying much, and of course, my dad was able to slack pack.
Oh, right,
so
nice.
He was trying to keep it pretty light as well.
Oh, very nice. So how many days were you out there?
So actually, we ended up hiking only one. It was me and my dad, and then my uncle, who lives in Connecticut as well.
Right.
The three of us went out one day, and my dad ended up taking a 0 day the next, just due to the heat. I think if it had been cooler, it may have been a little more accessible.
He's had some real excessive weather both ways, hasn't he? It's just been amazing how cold it was originally, but now he's getting too much heat. I think it's actually tougher hiking in the heat. I really do. It's just so sapping, that sort of weather, isn't it?
Right, and the humidity, I think, is what
Yeah.
really makes it difficult. And I think he is more comfortable in the cool,
Yes,
as evident in his early start date. But I think the heat will be a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you, I know because I speak to your dad quite a bit off mic as well, and he is so excited when the two of you could join him, and obviously your mum as well. But the opportunity to be hiking with his family, I know they are the highlights of his hike. So I wonder, are you going to be going up to Katahdin with him?
So that's the plan, I think, for the three of us. It, of course, will depend on when he gets there and my work schedule and Brooke's medical school schedule and my mom's work schedule at the school as well. But all things considered and logistics working out fine, I think we're planning to be up there.
It would definitely be one not to miss, I must say. So have you noticed because you did see him a few weeks ago on Brooke's graduation. Was it Brooke's graduation, I believe, a few weeks ago? Have you noticed changes in him over the course of his hike, quite apart from losing 40-odd pounds?
That's a good question. I mean, if anything, he seems just more energetic. I think part of that, of course, losing the weight helped.
Yes.
But I think it's probably more just being active. And that, I mean, I know, of course, going to work every day can become very lethargic, and it's nice to be moving. And I think all in all, he's just more energetic. And probably part of that is just from all activity.
It's funny, actually, and I'm going to be saying this also in the commentary, that, he sent me a blog post. He was struggling after Pennsylvania and New Jersey and New York with all the rocks, far more than he ever let on. So you obviously saw Connecticut, which is not easy, but it's a relatively nice hike. There's lots of nice bits. There's not some nice climbs, but there's nothing too drastic. You don't have tons and tons of rocks. Did he talk to you about how tough it had been in Pennsylvania?
He did mention it more so when we were out on the trail, and I think, of course, as you mentioned, he's very relieved to be done with Rocksylvania. And to your point, the trail is very nice and pretty easy on the legs, I would say, in Connecticut.
I'm going to tell you, though, when he gets up to New Hampshire and Maine, I know he's hiked up there before, so he kind of knows what he's letting himself in for. And I know he's done Connecticut before, because you guys used to live there, didn't you?
So actually, he just grew up there. Brooke and I and my mom, have all lived in Virginia.
All right. Yeah. I thought I knew he did. I thought you'd been there as well.
Well, so we would visit for family about once a year, but so we're not unfamiliar, but we didn't live there. But I think he's excited to be back where he grew up.
Do you understand, though, his and it does become a bit of an obsession for all of us who do this. Do you understand the obsession to get this done and complete this 2,200 mile journey, or do is it something you would ever consider doing?
I would consider it. I don't know if right now would be actionable for me. I know others who have done it, so I certainly understand it, and I know he's wanted to do it for such a long time.
I'm interested to see what people's reaction is to this blog post, because he's so wanted to do it. He seems so prepared, and I don't know if you've been listening to the podcast at all, but the podcast, he seems to be so on track and so managing what he's doing so well. And it was a bit of a surprise to me when he told me about the podcast, about the blog post the other day. So it obviously took more out of him than he'd actually told us before. So is there any chance you're going to get back on the trail with him before he gets to Katahdin, or is this it now? You're just now waiting till probably the end of August, I suspect, isn't it?
I think he's aiming for end of August or early September for Katahdin. I think we'd have to just look at both, of course, as it all goes, schedules, and then, right now he's at least close enough that he's accessible. And I think kind of what we mentioned before, he's trying to be strategic with the heat. Yes. And I don't think the heat's going to break.
Really?
too soon.
Is the forecast quite long-standing then at the moment, or long-ranging rather?
Of course, I'm watching New York and not Connecticut. And of course, I would like to think the trail's a little more, of course, shaded, a little more breezy, so it might be a little more of a break than the concrete city. But in New York, I think it's pretty pretty much for the next few weeks, as far as we can see out. It's going to be pretty hot.
Oh my gosh. I can remember it. I can remember that well. Okay, well, look, I just want to catch up with you, see your impressions. He's a happy man once more. He told me yesterday he wasn't happy for the last couple of weeks, but he's a happy man once more, and he's really enjoyed, I think, the boost he got from hiking with you two girls. So that's probably helped him out more than perhaps even he said. So I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Take it easy, okay, Amy?
All right. Talk to you soon.
Amy and her sister Brooke are so lovely, aren't they? I'm sure they're a little nervous of me because I kept trying to get them to ship some dirt on their dad while he was preparing. But they've been, along with Cheryl, his wife, so supportive of Bruce fulfilling his dream. They're testament to the importance of familial support if you want to increase your chances of completing this trail. Well, he's hiking and happy again. And that is a winning combination. Bruce and I will see you next week.